Welcome to episode 205 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the Penske Perfect and the Rematch edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Phil Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, a guy who went to the Rolex 24 at Daytona, but he's also an iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman, and a scholar. His name is Josh Fine. How's it going, brother?
I am doing great, Phil. Of course, went to the Rolex 24, saw the race there, had a great time with all my friends there, and of course got to not only take a picture with Bozzy Tatovarik, but also someone else took a picture of me taking a picture with him, so little photoception there. So we'll talk about that later. A lot of stuff that happened in that race and everything, but for you, San Francisco 49ers are in the Super Bowl. The first time in this history of this show that one of our teams made it to the NFL championship game here. So rooting for you here and rooting for the 49ers to go and make it and win the Super Bowl, hopefully.
Yeah, believe me, I did not think at halftime that was going to happen. I can't really believe that it did happen. I'm still kind of in shock. My not feeling at 100% probably doesn't help with that, but I guess that's what happens. This old age shit, when you're turning another year older, you get more sensitive to different things, but fuck. Watching the 49ers become the cardiac kids over the last 2 weeks has taken a couple of years off my life. But either way, they're going to Super Bowl 58, and they get to go and play Kermit the Frog, Uncle Travie, and Kansas City Chiefs, Andrew Rayad and his Nuggies, Steve Spagnuolo, and probably one of, if not the best defense in the NFL. Rematch of Super Bowl 54, which the Niners were leading with 7 minutes to go with a 10-point lead, and blew that game. Hopefully it goes a different way for my sake and for all 49ers fans' sake. It's been 29 years today since the Niners officially won their 5th Super Bowl. It was the first all-California Super Bowl, Super Bowl 29. It was in Miami, Joe Robbie Stadium. Yeah, look at Bridget Condon. Damn. And Steve Young on the first play from scrimmage threw a skinny post to Jerry Rice, and he scored. And that started what was a record 6 touchdowns in a Super Bowl that hasn't been broken ever since. And the Niners won 49-26 that day. Now, 2 weeks from now, if the Niners can come back and do that, go and win, make up for these 2 most recent appearances, which have been heart-wrenching, to say the least. And so we'll talk about it more next week in terms of a full-on preview. We'll get into it, though. We'll talk about both games that took place yesterday, the AFC Championship game and the NFC Championship game, a tale of two halves in the NFC Championship game. Lamar Jackson coming up small yet again in a big spot, even though he's going to be the MVP of the league. But, Brock Purdy had one bad game, and they said he can't be the MVP of the league. It's interesting to me how that works. But then I think the guy that he hands the ball off to should be the MVP of the league, because he is. But the riders really don't know what they're doing. We'll talk about the Rolex 24 at Daytona, which ended 3 minutes early. And I don't think it really changed any of the results of who was going to win in any of the classes. I think NBC or IMSA combined to say, yeah, we're going to run out of time before we had to go to figure skating or whatever the hell they had to go to at 2 o'clock. And so they wanted to make sure they got all the interviews in with all the different winners. So they cut the race short 3 minutes early. The Penske Porsche number 7, gets the overall victory, which was huge. Felipe Nasr, former Formula One driver, his teammate last year, Matt Campbell, his teammate this year, the American Dane Cameron, coming back from Europe, racing in the World Endurance Championship. 15th try to win the Rolex 24, and he finally gets it. And, the Indy 500 champion. I got the Indy 500 champion 164 diecast for Joseph Newgarden the day after he goes and wins a Rolex watch. So pretty big deal there for Joseph Newgarden, getting himself into territory which is literally AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti. I think they brought up all the rest of them, Al Unser Jr. and the like, that have been Indy 500 champions and also won the Rolex, Juan Pablo Montoya, et cetera, et cetera. But we'll get into all the results there in all the classes, talk about storylines that came out of that, as we'll have a decent wait, a good 6 weeks or so between this race and the 12 Hours of Sebring. We'll get into motorsports updates with Formula E in Saudi Arabia, doubleheader there, SuperMotocross at Anaheim 2. They had a triple, they had I forget what they called that, the format that they had there. Rally Monte Carlo starting the World Rally Championship season, and then any other news that's going on. And we'll preview and make our picks for the Busch Light Clash at the Coliseum. See how that all goes. There'll be, I think every chartered car is going to show up. 23 of those 36 cars will be in the main event. So it'll be a very tight packed field there, and it'll probably be a demo derby like it has been through every year so far. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing and gaming in the sim segment, and we'll close the deal. So yeah, let's start with the football, the AFC Championship game. I will admit that I won because I was watching the Rolex, and then I wasn't feeling too hot. I didn't really look at the game. I only checked the score at halftime, saw it was 17-7, Kansas City. Didn't know the storylines of Zay Flowers going and diving into the end zone and promptly fumbling the ball, which was probably a 10-point turnaround, or at least a 7-point turnaround, because if he had scored there, it would have been, I think, a 17-14 game there, and it might have been a totally different scenario. Lamar Jackson, who's going to be the MVP of the league, in this spot, wasn't able to beat Kermit the Frog. And I said it last week in my picks. I finally was like, I can't pick against the guy. I picked against him for God knows how many times, and he always wins. I have a bad feeling, like if I pick against him next week, even though it is my favorite team, but, we'll see what happens with all that. But freaking Kelsey, that tool, got a couple of touchdowns or whatever the hell, or broke a record that Jerry Rice had. He was talking shit. His significant other, who shall remain nameless, ended up flying in, and they showed her probably about 30 times. I think there's going to be props. Ariel Epstein can probably go and make one of her props off of how many times they're going to mention or show the woman that shall remain nameless, that is very famous and is great at singing and has 3.5-hour concerts, and also fucks Travis Kelce. But yeah, in the end, Baltimore, they were the best team for the vast majority of the season, Josh, but there's just something about old Kermit the Frog. When it comes down to having to clutch up, he's the new Tom Brady. He's the new age Tom Brady. 4 Super Bowl in 6 years as a starter in the NFL. Andrew Ryad, who is now a Hall of Fame. He was probably a Hall of Fame coach just with his Philadelphia credentials, but then winning the Super Bowls now is just gravy. And with him, it's plenty of gravy, since he has a body that looks like he's ate his fair share of it. Kansas City gets to go to another Super Bowl at the expense of the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, that was an interesting game there to watch. I actually was listening to the first half of that game in the car coming back from the Rolex there. So, I was just hearing what was happening, of course. And, of course, Travis Kelce and the Chiefs scored on their first possession of the game. The Ravens had the ball first. They weren't able to come up with anything, and later on, Lamar Jackson was able to work some magic to tie the game with his long touchdown to the right corner of the end zone to Zay Flowers off a scramble drill in there. So I was looking pretty close there, but I think just turnovers by Lamar Jackson in the first half, and then the second half, Zay Flowers fumbled while extending there. So, another week where a guy tried to extend into the end zone and fumbled the ball. This time the Chiefs fall on the fortunate end of that. Last week, MVS was the one that fumbled the ball there at the goal line for the Chiefs and gave the Bills a chance. Now this week, Zay Flowers goes and tries to extend and gives up a chance to score a touchdown probably for the Ravens. So a lot of discourse online about whether you should extend for the end zone or not, or for just the first down. So yeah, a lot of opportunities there that the Ravens had throughout that game to get there, and I think also you have to really give a lot of credit to the Chiefs defense. Steve Spagnuolo called a really good game there on defense for the Chiefs, and it was just really hard for the Ravens to move the ball consistently. You saw in the second half. They really needed a chunk play for the Ravens to get back in it, to score quickly so that they would have time at the end. And you saw in their last possession there where I think they ended up getting a field goal or settling for a field goal. They just took off too much time there on the clock to possibly come back and win it with the Chiefs eventually getting that long pass play to MVS there at the end. So, yeah, just a tough defense that they went up against now, and Patrick Mahomes playing like Tom Brady in this Super Bowl, this playoff run here, taking the short intermediate passes. We haven't really seen too much of no look passes and stuff like that. His offense has definitely changed, and Isaiah Pacheco, very physical runner there. So it was a tough game for them, especially the second half. They only had until I think their last passing play, they only had 62 total yards of offense in the second half. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs, their defense just was more effective in preventing the Ravens scoring in that game. So just a defensive stand by the Chiefs, and now they make it back to the Super Bowl, and probably the worst outcome that people wanted to see, of course, with the Chiefs making it back. I think people wanted the Ravens and the Lions to make it to the championship games. So this was definitely, especially considering all the circumstances, considering who's in it and everything, I think definitely the Chiefs for sure. But now we get to see a rematch here of the 2019 Super Bowl, and a lot of very, very much a rematch because that was an election year when that happened, and we're now in an election year again. I don't know if this also foretells that we're going to have some kind of pandemic again. Hopefully not,
Yeah.
but
No,
that happened too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, when I saw that, I'm like, oh God, the whole pandemic thing, and then after the last general election there, how bad that was in general for many reasons. Talking about that, now we're going back in 24 and we're having the same kind of bull crap. But I think the pandemic part, we'll say fingers crossed that we're not going to. I don't think anybody, I think 30 or 40% of the country is not going to lock themselves down anyway, so whatever. But yeah, either way, Kansas City getting through, winning on the road 2 games, Kermie going and slaying another deal, not having a home, not being at home for the first time in his career, and he goes out and wins a team that at times this year you could make an argument was not very good, especially on the offensive side of the ball. To go and put it together here in the playoffs speaks to, that combination. It speaks to Patrick Mahomes. It speaks to Andy Reid and, Travis Kelce coming out of hibernation and deciding to play when he isn't talking, since he seems to talk way too much. Be nice if somebody would hit him right in his mouth. But either way, Kansas City goes and they get to yet another Super Bowl, 4th in 6 years. And that was the precursor to the NFC Championship game, which in the first half, the Detroit Lions knew that it was the NFC Championship game, and the San Francisco 49ers were asleep or something. They were completely outclassed in the first half. Detroit just basically ran roughshod on them. Jared Goff looked as good as he probably ever has in his career. Whether he was handing the ball off to Gibbs or Montgomery, whether he was throwing the ball to Amon-Ra St. Brown or one of his other receivers, or Sam Laporta, of course. That's who he really throws to a lot. He did a end around to Jamison Williams. They score in 4 plays to start the game. They were up 24-7 at halftime, and I was feeling really depressed. I wasn't feeling good. I thought that I really was in bad shape. That we're going to go lose to the freaking Detroit Lions, and put the record in the NFC Championship game to 7-12. Oh, there you go. And as I'm watching, because I'm like, there's nothing really to watch, so I'm watching the NFC Championship game again. So it shows I'm mentally deranged because I want to put myself through this all over again. But in the second half, the guy who's a game manager supposedly led the 49ers back with an assist, of course, from the guy who is the MVP of the league. And I'll keep on saying it because he is. Christian McCaffrey is the base of the 49ers offense. Ever since he's been with the 49ers, he's arguably been the best player in the NFL. He does things with the football, and the way he runs the ball or just the way he plays is unique, dynamic to only him. And he scored 2 tutties. It wasn't his best yardage game, but Christian McCaffrey did work. GK only had a couple of catches for whatever reason, but he had key catches. Kyle Juszczyk had a couple of really good catches, one toe drag swag special in the first half, but in the end, Brandon Ayuk was the guy who he made the play in the second half where the ball bounced off of the cornerback's head and he caught it, was essentially the momentum changer. Dan Campbell went for it on 4th down. A couple of times it didn't work. He didn't choose to go for field goals, which, who knows what would have happened one way or the other if that had went that way. But Brock Purdy went and let him back. Christian McCaffrey did his thing. Brandon Ayuk. Deebo Samuel wasn't 100%, but he was there. And hopefully with 2 weeks' time, he will be closer to 100% so that he can function. He had a solid game in his first Super Bowl, but it's a different time 4 years later. Got a different quarterback, a better offense, a lot, but it's going to be the matchup there. They came back. They benefited from a Jahmyr Gibbs fumble right after they went and scored, and they tied the game up. They took control of the game in the second half, and even though their defense really couldn't stop anything most of the day, Nicholas John Bosa showed up and knew his assignment and played well. Greenlaw and Warner did what they had to do. The secondary struggled. in general, but I could say that for 49ers teams that have been in contention for the last 12 years, 13 years for that matter. And that was one of those passes that Jared Goff missed that if he had made, that probably would have been a turning point or game changer. He completely airmailed, what is that? Is that Gibbs? It might have been Gibbs or Reynolds, one or the other. He missed a few balls. No, it was a few balls that he missed.
I think it was to Reynolds. Yeah.
Yeah. He missed a few balls there during the game that he makes those plays. Then I don't know if we're really talking about this. We're talking about it in this way. But Brock Purdy, on the other hand, in the second half, hit what he had to hit. All the guys showed out. The defense did what they needed to do. It went to, they got it to, Detroit got it. They were outscored 27-7 in the second half. They got the touchdown to get within 3 points, had to get an onside kick. Weren't able to get that onside kick. George Kittle, after the weird bounce, gets the ball, and he gets to have a chance at redemption because they keep on showing the clip of him saying he's going to be back and all that to the Super Bowl, and he'll get that chance here in 2 weeks' time in Las Vegas. And the fact that the 49ers won this game is still crazy to me. The way that they played in the first half, it makes no sense. They've played two of their worst defensive games here in the last 2 weeks against Green Bay and Detroit. You add playing against Baltimore on Christmas Day, and you can make the case that, 3 out of their last 4 games have been absolutely atrocious at times for a good portion of the game. I mean, Green Bay game, that game was basically bad for 3 quarters. This game was bad for a half. The Baltimore game was bad the whole time, but they were in the game through the first half. So, I mean, they're the cardiac kids these days, the 49ers. They get through, Josh, and I'm not in the hospital somehow or another after all that. But yeah, San Francisco, in the end, they've been one of, if not the best team in the NFC this year. And even if they haven't played to that level in recent weeks, they've done just enough to get the job done. And Kyle Shanahan trying to break narratives about him being conservative. Kyle Shanahan trying to break narratives about not being able to win from behind. 2 weeks in a row, his teams have won from behind. 17-point deficit in the NFC Championship game. I mean, that was the biggest deficit they've had since Colin Kaepernick led the Niners back in the NFC Championship game against Atlanta, to go and win that game and get to the Super Bowl against Double Murderer and the Ravens in what ended up being the Lights Out Bowl. But man, I've said a lot here, but I'm still in disbelief.
No, I mean, I feel you there, and it's a lot to take in with how that went down, and it's hasn't really even been a day yet since it happened, so it's still a lot for taking as a fan team going to the Super Bowl and all that. But the Lions did have control for a good amount of that game. They started out on fire, going right down the field and going in the end zone right there with Jameson Williams, and then later on they get another touchdown, they get an interception, and all of a sudden they're up 17 points going into the half. So they took a lot there for them to come back, or for for the 49ers there to come back. And a lot of people are going to talk about the missed field goals and the stuff like that, but really it is just a lot that culminated in that decision, or in that ability for the 49ers to come back. Because I think the first field goal that they passed up to go for on 4th down, I mean, I guess you can take it, and they're up 17. It allowed the allowed the 49ers to get back into the game, but at the same time, they're still far ahead enough where it didn't really change the game either way, other than failing to take points on that drive. But then later on, the 49ers got a touchdown and then got into with seven, up, or 17-24, still losing, and then they fumbled the ball for the Lions, and I think that was really what kind of culminated there, because now you have a short field. Then the 49ers get another touchdown there, and then they lost control of that game, and then Jared Goff also threw another interception. And so, with all of that happening, then when they decided to go for it down 3, there, I think you had to take the field goal there, because, if you don't get it, then you're going to run out of chances. So I think the first field goal attempt that they passed up on, I agree with going for it on 4th down. The second one, I think I disagree there, because you're behind, and with the amount of time left that you need and everything, it's hard to come back and everything. So I would say, the second one, they definitely should have kicked the field goal there, and everything. But then also, turnovers in the championship game, especially in the second half, very critical. So those were very critical turnovers there for the Lions. And, got to wonder, a little bit about Jared Goff and everything with, obviously it was one of the best seasons that he's had, but at the same time, you wonder if they re-sign him or if they extend him, if that's the right decision. And I think Dan Campbell kind of said it perfectly in the post game there to his team, saying we may never have a shot at this ever again. And honestly, that might be true. So obviously there's a reason why the Lions have never made it to the Super Bowl in 58 years of the Super Bowl existing. So obviously they're only team that's been around for every Super Bowl that has existed for every Super Bowl has never made it. So obviously got to feel for that fan base, and the Cinderella story finally comes to an end there, and the 49ers make it back to the title game in rematch, of course, as we said earlier, with the Chiefs. And they've got a lot of upgrades now, of course. So with the 49ers, Brock Purdy, who looked a lot like, to me, I think he looked a lot like Harbaugh era Alex Smith there, circa the 49ers Saints playoff game back in the 2012 NFL or 2011-2012 NFL playoffs there, with the way he was scrambling there and picking up yards on his feet. Very Alex Smith Harbaugh era like. So that was very interesting to see him use his legs like that. And also, he's got a hodgepodge of talent there. Kittle, McCaffrey, as you said, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, amazing catch there, off the face mask, 52-yard completion to kind of get the comeback started. So, it was a very, very talented team there and also Kyle Juszczyk, still one of the 2 fullbacks still remaining in this league. So, big comeback there. Very talented team, of course, on there. So definitely looking forward to this matchup here in the Super Bowl and seeing how they match up. With the Chiefs defense, I think it's going to be a tough deal with the way the Chiefs have been playing defense. But I think on their defense, I think they have what it takes to go up against Mahomes there and Kelsey and keep them covered and shut down the run with Pacheco. So be interesting to see and everything. So definitely looking forward to seeing this Super Bowl here in 2 weeks.
I think you're one of the only ones, it seems, that aren't fans of that as a Niner or Kansas City fan. I think a lot of people on socials are complaining about it, whether it's because of
they're casuals.
Yeah, they're casuals, or because of the woman that dates Travis Kelce, or Kermit the Frog, or the fact that it's the Niner. I don't know. Whatever it may be. I know I'm plenty entertained. Even though they've tried to put me in the hospital for I don't know how many of the most recent weeks. The Brock, it's a great point you brought up there about Brock using his legs was huge. They were playing base. Greg Olson kept on bringing it up where They were playing base defense, and when they were playing that, there was just enormous like space. And Brock, on top of him being a game manager, they say he doesn't have any athleticism, but he ran pretty good. And was able to go out there and do what he needed to do, gaining all those yards, gives them momentum. You can go and then run your offense accordingly, give it back to McCaffrey, go and throw play action, which is the crux of the Shanahan scheme. And they were able to do everything there in the second half and shut that piece of crap CJ Gardner-Johnson up pretty good. Shows yet once again why the guy's been on multiple teams in the NFL and he's still a fucking tool. He gets to go, wow, it's a nice outfit on Aaron Andrews. But the Niners get the win somehow, some way. And they are now going to the Super Bowl, trying to get their elusive sixth Super Bowl to tie them with the New England Patriots and the Pittsburgh Steelers, with the most in the Super Bowl era. The only teams that are ahead of them are teams that existed pre-Super Bowl era: the Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, Chicago Bears, and the New York Giants. Giants have the most Super Bowls, I think, amongst those three, because they've won 4. Yeah, they won 4. Green Bay's won 3, or no, they've won 4. Okay, they have the same amount. All right. So I'm just thinking off top of the head. Chicago's only had the 1 Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll spend more time on the game next week on episode 206 of the GSP. In terms of, we've talked about it, early preview. I mean, the key topics will, of course, be Mahomes and his legacy, being the new Brady, being the current face of the league, all his damn commercials, and his annoying wife and stupid brother, Kelsey, and the Swifties. Him barking as he always does, and then his big brother going tops he'll probably go tops at the Super Bowl for everyone to see, since he wants to prove to everyone that, I guess that's part of him being in the People magazine for whatever they say the best looking dude, so he wants to show off his bitch tits and everything, and that's fine. Either way, they should why don't you just go one step further? Let's go and see Andy Reid, and then that'll bring in Eclipse in Las Vegas. That'll be a good commercial for State Farm if they go and pull that stunt, but they won't. Kyle Shanahan, can he go out there and actually call a good game here, not a conservative game? They haven't been good so far in these playoffs through 2 games. Can they somehow or another put together their best game plan and best game here in the biggest game there is? The Christian McCaffrey has one more game. If he can go out there, he makes his first Super Bowl. Trent Williams, the best offensive lineman in the NFL for basically his entire career, he gets his first opportunity at a Super Bowl. Both of those guys are elite. Christian McCaffrey's dad, Ed McCaffrey, won 4 Super Bowls. He won 2 with Denver, everybody knows about. He was on the field with his brothers when, and I don't know if it was Christian or one of his brothers got lost. They lost, both Ed and Lisa lost track of a couple of their kids there back in the day, in the craziness that is the end of a winning Super Bowl. But in this case, can Christian McCaffrey do something his dad did 4 times, win the big game? He won for the Giants, he won for the 49ers in that game, that Super Bowl 29, and also twice for Denver. Trent Williams, I don't think when he was in Washington ever thought he would ever get to a Super Bowl, and he's been close here a couple of years, NFC Championship game, but now they're there, and I don't think he wants to leave Las Vegas without a ring and without the hardware. The defense, though, that's going to be a big discussion point in general. The Kansas City defense has been the better part of their team for most of the year. Steve Spagnuolo showing once again why he's one of the best defensive coordinators in football. They've acquired a lot of talent on that side of the ball. I mean, they lost Charles Omena, who was on the 49ers, was having a career year, tore his ACL yesterday in the AFC Championship game, so that is a big loss. But they still have Chris Jones. They still have, other guys that are out there. They have L'Jarius Sneed. They're not going to go away easy. And when you look at the offensive side of the ball, you have Isaiah Pacheco, and when you look at what the Green Bay and Detroit has done so far against the Niners defense, I don't see why Isaiah Pacheco wouldn't be able to do a similar kind of thing. And then you have Kermit the Frog, who didn't play a great game against the 49ers. He made 2 plays, really, and one of them was 3rd and 18, and threw one, then got 1 score, and really that was what it was. He did not play good in that game, but Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners gave it to them. And if he goes and wins this game, it'd be 3 Super Bowl wins out of 4. They'll continue the whole Tom Brady narrative. Or if the Niners can go out there, get their first Super Bowl in 29 years. We'll get into that. I mean, is there anything else you're thinking, Josh, that I missed that we should kind of look at other than the props about Taylor Swift, since there's going to be plenty of Taylor Swift props going on?
Well, I mean, I mentioned last week about the fans and everything of hers and everything, so be interesting to see, if the game doesn't go the Chiefs' way, how they react on social media and stuff. But that'll be interesting to see. But I mean, for the Chiefs, I mean, their defense, I think in particular their defensive players, Karlaftis. He's been really good as a defensive end paired with Chris Jones there, of course, and I think Chris Jones would honestly probably be he'd probably have a lot more fanfare around him if it weren't for probably Aaron Donald. So he's been really, really great, obviously, but him on the secondary, the back end there, for L'Jarius Sneed, he's been really good since he came into the league, and I had him on fantasy all year. He didn't really create a lot of fantasy points, but as cornerback play, he's probably been one of the best in the league, and going into free agency this year. So we'll see potentially a team like the Jaguars pick him up there in free agency if they're smart enough to do it there. But he's going to be a highly sought after free agent here in March if the Chiefs don't retain him. So it's gonna be interesting to see all that. But I think those are a couple players on defense, and then on their wide receivers. I mean, Rashid Rice has really picked it up for them, of course, and with Pacheco and everything. And we already talked about it, but I think those players I think are going to be key for the Chiefs and the 49ers. I mean, we've already brought them up. So, I mean, you said at the show, like, earlier, like, for me, like, I'm, not disappointed in the 49ers making it, obviously, but that's really because, I'm rooting for you and for you to have something and everything, because now it's, that's an opportunity. But, the Chiefs, whatever, so, it's going to be interesting. But, I mean, I think it's going to be a really, for the officials as well. I mean, they were complaining for the Chiefs and Ravens game, the crew that they had there, which is interesting because last year that was the crew in the Jaguars wild card game versus the Chargers, and the first half was very suspect in how they were calling that game. And this game, I think there was a lot of suspect calls there, a lot of missed pass interferences that they had against the Ravens or against the Chiefs, when the Ravens had the ball, a couple of missed holds that the Chiefs benefited from on offense. So that was curious, and now definitely curious about what officiating crew that they use here for the Super Bowl. And of course, with it being in Vegas and everything, and the NFL embracing gambling as much as they've ever had, it's going to be very interesting from that perspective, which we've already discussed here in past shows. So, definitely looking forward to seeing all of that for sure.
Yeah, and we'll get into all those details since between now and next week they'll have hashed out everything through all the channels and through the socials and the like. But we are also a racing show first and foremost, and there was a big race that took place this weekend, one that you attended, Josh, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. You also got to meet one Darrell Wallace Jr. and John Hunter Nemechek during the Michelin Pilot Challenge. So photographer Bubba Wallace also got a lot of good content there. But you got to meet Bozy, the famous Bozy. He didn't have much of a weekend because his car got destroyed early in the race. But in terms of the 24 hours or the Rolex 2357 at Daytona, you can see it even in the clock time. It says they called it, and the winners were at 23 hours 58 minutes 24.723 seconds. So there you go. So that was, and they completed 791 laps. The number 7 Porsche Penske Motorsports team, Felipe Nasr, Dane Cameron, Matt Campbell, and Joseph Newgarden, beating the Whelen Engineering Cadillac team of Pippo Durrani, Jack Aiken, and Tom Blomqvist. The third place finisher was the Wayne Taylor Racing with Andretti Dex Imaging car, which I found out yesterday was Dan Doyle. Didn't know that since his son was in the race. Dan Doyle, who was a longtime supporter of Wayne Taylor, and now I get where one of the benefactors of Harrison Burton's career came from. Also, Dan Doyle, who's sponsored with Danka for many years, sponsored Wayne Taylor while he was a driver. Now he's going to sponsor Jordan Taylor's car in the GTP class here in 2024. They finished third. Louis Delatraz's teammate finished. Jordan Taylor, Jenson Button, and Colton Herta were the drivers there. Fourth place was the second Penske Porsche, Nick Tandy, Matthew Jaminet, Kevin Estra, and Lawrence Vanthor. And the Proton competition Mustang sampling 5-car, Neil Yanni, Jimmy Bruni, Picarello, and Romain Dumas finished fifth. So they were the last car on the lead lap. The JDC Miller Motorsports Porsche was 2 laps down. They were in the mix for a long time, though. Richard Westbrook, Vanderhelm, Phil Hansen, Ben Keating were the driver lineup there. The BMWs had issues later in the race, but they finished 7th and 8th. The LMP2 winners, there were 5 cars on the lead lap in that class, but the LMP2 winners were Era Motorsports, Ryan Dial, and Dwight Merriman. But the guys that got the big focus were 17-year-old Connor Zilich, who used to drive for Shea Holbrook and the MX-5
Trackhouse.
Yeah, in the MX-5 Cup and in Trans Am. Now he's a Trackhouse development driver. And then Indy NXT champion Christian Rasmussen, who will be driving Fred Carpenter Racing this year. Those were the guys that got a lot of the press because of how fast and how talented they are, and they assisted the regular duo, of course, Ryan Dial, longtime veteran and a winner, and Dwight Merriman to get this victory. CrowdStrike by APR comes close again, 7 seconds this year instead of a photo finish. George Kurtz and Colin Braun, Toby Sowery and Jakobsen. And then in third place was the Riley Motorsports 74 of Gar Robinson, Felipe Fraga, Burdon, and Felipe Massa. The Inter-Europol by PR1 Matheson, 52 was fourth. And then the Tower Motorsports 8 car, which had Scott McLaughlin, finished fifth. Pietro Fittipaldi drove for the Inter-Europol team, the same group that won at Le Mans last year in LMP2. 2 laps behind the winners were the United Autosports number 2, which had Pato O'Ward, Ben Keating, Nico Pino, and Ben Hanley. They'll be a tough team to beat during the regular season, though, once we get to that. In GTD Pro, the Risi Competizione Ferrari of Daniel Serra, David Rigon, Alexander Perguidi, and James Collado get the victory over the AO Racing Porsche, number 77 of Heinrich, Sebastian Prio, and Michael Christensen. And third place in GTD Pro was the Paul Miller Racing BMW, Madison Snow, Brian Sellers, Neil Verhagen, and Sheldon Vanderlinde. They had brake problems late in the race, which set them back. They were in the mix to win the race or win their class up until that point. In GTD, the Windward Racing Mercedes, Russell Ward, Philip Ellis, Donche, and Daniel Morad get the win over the AF Corsa Ferrari of Man Hariu, Miguel Molina, and Kay Cozzolino. And then third place in that in GTD was the Conquest Racing Ferrari with Franco Costa Balboa, can't even say that guy's name, and Alessandro Balzan. So good job by them. Ferraris had 3 of the top 4. They were second, third, and fourth in GTD, and then they won in GTD Pro. So the Ferrari 296 looks very strong, at least at Daytona. So that was that. I mean, some of the drivers that ended up having bad days. I mean, the TDS Racing number 11 had a massive wreck early in the race. Seth Thomas, Mikkel Jensen, Hunter McElray, and Mielcy destroyed their car out of the bus stop chicane. You had, trying to see some of these other cars, the Magnus Racing team fell out early. Harder Racing had, with their GTD car, had problems. The Gradient Racing Acura with Catherine Legg, Sheena Monk, Tatiana Calderon, Stephen McAleer had problems. The 01, the 2
they had problems
prototypes, too. The 2 big prototypes that had issues were the 01 Ganassi Cadillac, which was leading for a good amount of the race early, which is Sebastian Bourdais, Renger van de Zande, Scott Dixon, and Alex Palou. I mentioned the Bosie with the Vassar Sullivan Lexus, the 14, the GT Pro car got damaged in a wreck that was caused by an LMP2 car. The high class number 20, that was the car with Jack Hawksworth, Ben Barnacote, Kyle Kirkwood, and Mike Conway. So they got knocked out of there. And then the other GTP car that had a lot of issues was the 10 car. And, they've been in contention the last 3 years. They've won, Acura's won the last 3 years. The Wayne Taylor team's been in contention over recent years, whether they were in a Cadillac or a Acura. But their car shut off during the night Ricky Taylor, Philippe Albuquerque, Brendan Hartley, and Marcus Ericsson. They had to get on a rollback, and it was too much to overcome at that point. The Mustangs had various issues. The Corvettes in their GT3 debut, mixed results for sure. So interesting. We'll see Ford versus Chevy. They were fast. They had pace, but something that we'll see as the season goes on. I think the development will make a big difference as the season goes on, though, with those. But, I mean, in the end, it was a Porsche versus Cadillac battle for a good amount of the race. Wayne Taylor, Acura, always seems to stand out and do well at Daytona. It's just a byproduct of the deal. But in the end, it was going to be hard for anybody that wasn't in a Porsche to really, the one Cadillac that was left, that Whelen Engineering Cadillac, was super fast the whole entire time. And Pippo Durrani is one of the best drivers in the world. He's proven it time and time again, no matter what car he gets into. And he's a champion, multi-time champion for a reason. But even he couldn't slay the Penske Dragon there. His former teammate, too, and Felipe Nasr in the Penske Porsche team. A year ago, the Porsches were not good early on in the season. They had their issues at the Enduros, even with the amount of testing they had done. And as the season went on, they developed and they got better and better, started winning, got themselves in the mix to possibly win the championship at Petit Le Mans. This time, though, for the first time in, 57 years, they said?
Since Penske had won.
Since Penske had won overall. He won with Mark Donohue overall, and I'm forgetting the other gentleman's name that they won overall. So it was a big moment. Roger Penske's career in terms of ownership and driving started with sports car racing. So he was a champion in sports car racing at an SCCA before he became the multi-trillionaire that he is now. But once upon a time, he was a driver too. And him and Mark Donohue became one of the greatest combinations that ever existed until Mark Donohue's untimely passing. But 57 years later, a Porsche's in victory lane yet again at the Rolex 24, this time with a Penske name on it. And plenty of emotions connected to that group. And they had to work hard the whole entire time. It wasn't handed to them by any means, Josh.
Yeah, that was a very well fought victory there for Porsche Penske Motorsports and then number 7. Yeah, they were really fast overall. This was going to come down to either the Cadillac, the 31, or either the two Penske Porsches and the 6 and the 7. And I think the 7 just had more pace throughout, especially as they got to Sunrise. The 7 was definitely hunting down the 31 throughout that. And then, they got around him, so I think around Sunrise or about that time. And the 31 was behind the 7 for a bit. But, about an hour left with the race. Hour and 18 minutes left in the race. Tom Blomqvist had a big run coming out of the bus stop and into turn 3 and 4 on the oval, and was able to get around the 7 there for the lead, and they split the Ferrari GTD Pro there, and in going into turn 1, and he got around him there. So I really think the 31 probably would have had it in the bag if the last caution didn't come out with the 12 Lexus blowing up there off of pit road on the exit. So I think that would have been the victory there, because I think they definitely gotten ahead quite a bit of the Porsche there. So it was definitely competitive there throughout the entire race. The beginning of the race, the 31 and the 01, I think, were the class of the field, at least, through the first 8 hours or so. And then, right around 10, I think 10 or 11, I think at real time PM at night, so about maybe 8 or 9 hours. The 01 was battling with the 31 for first place, and then they had a flat tire there because they ran over something, and that was pretty much started the end of their race because they ran off track when Bourdais was driving, and then went to pit road and lost a lap with the flat tire. So that kind of took them out of contention there, and then of course they ended up not finishing. So that's kind of disappointing there for the 01. They've been close last couple of years. Remember in 2022 they were 2022 I think they were, or 21, they were very close to coming to the finish and possibly winning that. So missed opportunity. They weren't as close this time, but definitely they had a really, really fast car there. And 31, of course, with the Whelen Engineering Cadillac, really, really fast throughout the entire event. And I think the Porsche there, I think they just had better pit strategy. Of course, the final caution, they came out of pit road first, so of course they required less time to charge for them compared to the 31, which makes sense because 31 is definitely driving with Bloomquist behind the wheel very, very hard in that previous stint there. So of course, the Acuras, they led some, especially the 40, they were up front. In the 10, they were up front very early, after the first couple of wrecks there in the race. But, I just don't think they really had the true pace compared to the, Bloomquist or in the 31 and the 7 there. So, that was really interesting to kind of see them battle it out throughout the entire event, of course. But seeing the finish play out there, definitely questionable with officiating there, with ending the race with basically the Rolex 23 hours and 58 minutes and 25 seconds, I think. So definitely a lot that could have happened there, but I don't really think the finish in any of the classes was really in doubt when they ended it early by mistake. And I do think part of that was because I think the clock started at 140, but they didn't actually go green until like 142. So you have to wonder what the error was there, why they didn't start the race at 140. But it's part of it. So a little bit of a scoring error there, kind of amateurish, but it's still at the same time still a great overall race that you really shouldn't tarnish that. So for me, a lot of fun there as usual. Of course, spent a good amount of time in the stands on the second day. Of course, really the whole time spent in the stands. Got to see sunrise this time, so that was pretty nice. Got a few pictures and everything, so got pictures of the pass for the lead there with, that I mentioned earlier with Bloomquist over the 7. So it was a good battle for the lead there. The first day got a lot of free shirts there at the midway and everything, of course, and my friends there came with me, of course, again. So glad to have my friends at the track for this. Glad to meet Bozy pre-race and everything. Glad to get that picture and then have the photographer take the picture there for a little photoception there. So that was pretty funny to see, because I actually did not even know that until a day later. When that we were waiting for the finish jab, and I just happened to scroll through Twitter, and I guess I'd missed it, but then I saw 20 hours earlier Posey posted the picture of us taking a picture together. So pretty funny to see how that play out. So took a lot of pictures there, as I said. Gotta give a shout out to our friend Joe Passero, who helped me with give me some tips there on what aperture to use and shutter speed and light sensitivity and all that stuff. So he's giving me some tips there. I was asking him for advice on that, and he gave me a lot of good insight. So I know he's a bit of a race photographer as well, with taking it to the track. So glad to have that advice and everything. Definitely looking forward to try to build up that skill. Took photography. I've never taken really any photography classes or anything like that, but I had taken my camera last year, and I didn't really. I mean, I had good shots and everything, but I didn't really experiment with anything. But this definitely was trying to get some good shots there with creating a picture, and being able to show the motion blur of the cars, the sense of speed, and all that stuff. So glad to have gotten that experiment, of course. And of course, yeah, last week meeting Bubba Wallace and John Nemechek after their practice and everything, which we talked about before, but still glad to see two active NASCAR drivers. I didn't get to see Bubba Wallace when he was taking pictures, but I know there was a few fans that spotted him and they got a picture with him. So definitely good for him and everything. But it was overall a good race, I'd have to say. Very entertaining throughout. Had a lot of wrecks in the beginning, which I felt, last couple of years, there really hadn't been too many accidents or anything like that, at least in the beginning portion. But, I think part of it might be because they, me and Joe were debating this over text. I think part of it was because they paved over part of the grass, and maybe that changed the sight line for the braking zone. And, they just maybe weren't used to that. And even though with, practice and everything, still not used to that in race conditions. When you're racing against other people, where your braking line is going to be and everything, because they repaved part of the chicane, which apparently now they're going to tear that up and pave all of that with grass and everything because of the Ryan Preece flip from last year. So NASCAR running another element of the track and everything. So we'll see how that affects the racing next year, but I definitely think that could have been a factor. Maybe they take some cues from Charlotte. That's what Joe was telling me on how to paint the track for the chicane so that you can still see some visibility beyond the curbs and everything. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, good race overall. Definitely entertained throughout and everything. So hopefully be able to do it again and everything, and of course be able to attend again with my friends and everything. So glad to have gone, and glad to get that experience and be able to stay overnight there on the beach and be able to go there, grab some Waffle House and all that stuff. So yeah, great Rolex 24 hours for sure.
And I mean, when it comes to current day sports car racing, it's a great time now because with all the different manufacturers involved in the GTP category, and that doesn't even include Aston Martin, who'll be there next year. Lamborghini is going to be there next year. Lamborghini will debut at the 12 Hours of Sebring. Aston Martin is going to bring their hypercar here as well. For whatever reason, Toyota and Ferrari have not decided to do that as of yet. But you consider all the different manufacturers involved there, and then GT3 is absolutely insane. All the different manufacturers that are involved there. It's almost like a opening to what you look at with NASCAR and IndyCar. And the irony is Jim France runs both of these deals, but one series is able to get 8 trillion manufacturers to show up and be a part of it, and the other one has been looking for a fourth OEM for years and can't find one. And they've made the cars more spec and this, that, the other. And they made them more like a GT3 car, to be fair. And they still can't get a fourth OEM. And, I mean, IndyCar is another one, which they were ahead of the game. They had a chance to get their formula out there before IMSA got the GTP formula, the convergence of GTP and hypercar together, and they missed not only with the car but also with the engine. And because of that, we see where we're at with a car that is now 12 years old, engine formula which is the same. They were going to do hybrid, but that's going to be delayed till after the Indianapolis 500. Like sports car racing right now, enjoy it, appreciate it. This is our time, because I was too young to appreciate the GTP era in the 80s and the 90s. before that all blew up. GTS was outstanding in GT. They had GTS, GTO, and GTU. So you had 3 different classes. GTS was like unlimited. The GTO was over 3-liter engines, and GTU was under 3-liter engines. So that was where you had so many different manufacturers involved in its heyday. And when it was sponsored by Exxon Supreme back in the 90s, when I was watching, when I first started watching sports car racing. We have a good thing right now. Got to go out there, support IMSA races, go out there. I want to go to the 6 hours. I think it's more likely than it's ever been. So I want to go there and see those cars in the worst way. So it'll be cool to do that. Because we have a great thing here. If there's a series that has a little bit of everything, IMSA has it. So definitely appreciate it. We'll have some time between now and the 12 hours of Sebring for a lot of these teams to go back, regroup, see what they need to improve on, and really get their heads down once you get to Sebring, because then the season starts in earnest. We talked about the class winners and key storylines and all. The error, of course, with the calling the race early, but I guess they did a lot of things right. Biggest crowd they've had in 60-something years of this race. To have a snafu like that, unfortunate, but in the end, it didn't affect the race per se. So we'll move on to the other racing that went on this past weekend. Formula E ran at Saudi Arabia on Friday and Saturday. On Friday, the world champion Jake Dennis won the race and ran the fastest lap. Jean-Eric Verne started on pole but finished second, just ahead of Nick Cassidy in third. Sam Bird and Mitch Evans rounded out the top 5. Norman Nato, Gunther, Verline, Sete Camara, and Robin Freins rounded out the top 10. Jan Deruvula finished 20th, and Sasha Fenestraz was the only car that DNF'd in race 1. In race 2, Nick Cassidy got the win and also the fastest lap by he won by 1.192 seconds over Robin Freins, and Oliver Rowland started on pole, finished third. Jake Hughes, Stoffel Van Dorn, making 5 different teams in the top 5. Sasha Fenestraz recovers, gets to 6th in the second race. Verline, Jean-Eric Verne, Maxi Gunther, Mitch Evans, your top 10. Jake Dennis finished 12th after qualifying 14th. The Mahindra cars, Mortaro was 11th, De Vries 15th. I forgot about him in the first race there. Deruvula fell out of the second race there. The points, they're going to have 6 weeks break between these races at Saudi and then Sao Paulo, Brazil. The race in India got canceled. So the point standings heading to Brazil, Nick Cassidy has a 19 point lead over Pascal Verline. After 2 third-place finishes and a win, Cassidy in 2 fastest laps. Verline had the win at Mexico City. Jean-Eric Verne is in third. Jake Dennis 4th. Mitch Evans 5th. Maxi Gunther 6th. Freins, Buemi, Rowland, Hughes. Huge gaps, though. 19 points for first to second, then 5 points second to third, 10 points second to fourth, and then 17 points from second to fifth. But it's early in the season. And we'll move to SuperMotocross, raced at Anaheim 2. SuperMotocross Anaheim 2, with the triple, I'm trying to I'm forgetting the format or how the Triple Crown format. Cooper Webb wins the Triple Crown for 450 class. Levi Kitchen wins in 250s. The official results for the 250, Levi Kitchen gets the win over RJ Hampshire and Joe Shimoda. Nate Thrasher and Jordan Smith round out the top 5. In 450s, it was Cooper Webb over his teammate Eli Tomac, who won the 3rd moto. Jason Anderson, who won the 2nd moto. Aaron Plessinger coming off of his first career win at San Diego. And Chase Sexton, who won the 1st moto and finished 2nd and the 3rd. But had an 11th in between that. So 2 Monster Energy Star Racing Yamahas and 2 Red Bull KTMs there. The one in the meat and the sandwich was Jason Anderson on the Monster Energy Kawasaki. Points heading to Detroit. I mean, the West Series, the 250 West will be on break for a few weeks. Aaron Plessinger has a 4-point lead. He'll have the red plate, 4-point lead over his teammate. Chase Sexton, the defending champion. Cooper Webb -6. Jet Lawrence -8. Eli Tomac -10. Jason Anderson 13 points back. Dylan Ferrandis 18 points back. So going to Detroit. And then in the 250 West right now, Jordan Smith and Levi Kitchen are tied. RJ Hampshire 8 points back, and Garrett Marchbanks 14 points back. Then once you get past those guys, it's a pretty tight race from 5th on back. 8 points separating Bourdon to Mumford. The 250 East will start their series here at Detroit. Then there'll be they'll go back. There'll be a West race at Glendale, and then there'll be East. There'll be East races. They'll have a few races in a row. There are 4 races in a row with Dallas or Arlington, Texas, Daytona, Birmingham, Alabama, and Indianapolis before they go back west with Seattle, St. Louis. So we'll definitely get into that more as we get further into the season. The Rally Monte Carlo was the next thing. The final result: Thierry Neuville wins the Rally Monte Carlo over Sebastian Ogier by 16.1 seconds. Efren Evans rounds out the podium 45.2 seconds behind in 3rd. So Hyundai gets the win, 2 Toyotas behind him. The Hyundai of Ott Tanak was 4th. The first Ford was Adrian Formeau, 3 minutes 36 seconds, 36.9 seconds behind. Ott Tanak was 159.8 back and forth. Andreas Mikkelsen and Takamoto Katsuda rounded out the Rally 1 cars. The first car in WRC2 was a Citroen C3 Johan Rossell in 8th. So the podium finished 8th through 10th there. The Gregoire Munster, the second Puma Ford there, finished 20th. And so some of these other guys, so that is that. The next rally they'll be racing same weekend as the Daytona 500. They'll race Rally Sweden in the snow and the ice. They'll have just over 2 weeks between now and the start of that rally. Other news going on: Red Bull RB F1, the artist formerly known as AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, whatever. They're gonna have Tim Goss, a former FIA person, chief technical officer, and then Alan Permane, longtime lead person at Renault. What was Renault, or what was Benetton, whatever you want to call it, how many different guises they were. they're both going over to that team. So interesting pickups there. Looks set to sit out the 24 season. Wow. So defending Supercars champion Brody Kostecki is not going to be defending his title with Erebus Racing. Tensions between for some time. Kostecki having a major fallout, and ironically that weekend Kostecki's under contract for the remainder of 24, and as things end, should he depart, looks unlikely to be released to join another team. Unlikely to participate as a co-driver. Well, the other thing is for Brody Kostecki is even if he isn't running in supercars this year, which would be pretty sad, considering SVG now, of course, is here in NASCAR in an Xfinity series, and the guy that he beat SVG to get the title, he would have had a chance to go and get a repeat title, but it looks like that's not going to happen. It's a huge loss to the series. Makes it a lot better for Ford, though, and their chances to come back after what was a god-awful year in 2023. And so that's an interesting turn of events there. McLaren Norris standing, he doesn't want to challenge himself, so that helps. Tech 3 MotoGP, so that's the gas team as Pedro Acosta gets ready for his MotoGP debut. The Rock will be the Grand Marshal for the Daytona 500, and so there's F1. So that's some of the news there. Trackhouse launched their MotoGP team, and the bikes are red, white, and blue, so that's really cool. And so that'll be nice to see someone to root for on the MotoGP side since Trackhouse is involved there. Josh Williams will be running select cup races for Colleague Racing in 2024, along with his full season in the Xfinity Series Clash. So that's about it for the news there. So we can get into the Clash. Clash at the Coliseum. We have the entry list has not been released yet. But essentially the 36 cars that are the chartered 36 will be in the field. You can the only real changes that you can come up with are some of the smaller teams had changes. Stuart Haas definitely had changes. Of 2 of their 4 drivers are new. Josh Berry in the 4 car and Gagson in the 10. Justin Haley moving over to Rick Ware Racing in the 51. You have Daniel Hemrick in the 31, and his teammate, at least for this weekend, will be Josh Williams in the 16 car. It'll be a revolving door of drivers again. Spire will have 3 cars this year with the 71, which is Zane Smith. And he'll be he's a Trackhouse driver, but they've farmed him out to Spire for his rookie year. And then the 77 will be fellow rookie and former Truck Series driver Carson Hocevar. That'll be some of them. That's what I'm remembering off the top of my head. So go to the chart. Ross Chastain, of course, will be sponsored by Busch Light, his first race with the big sponsorship there after they spent many, many years with Kevin Harvick. John Hunter Nemechek will be in the 42 for Legacy, and the Kaz Grau will be in the 15 car, 25 races. Other than that, I think everything else pretty much is stayed the same. Some sponsors may be added for some of these teams. Josh Williams, Chris Buescher, Yeah, you got that. Nothing. Yeah, Hunt Brothers Pizza has moved over to Joey Logano, and Air Force comes back to Bubba Wallace after he worked with them at the 43 car. And scroll through some of these here. Eric Jones will have Advent Health and then Dollar Tree Family Dollar for a good amount of races because they are connected to both Legacy Motor Club, or all three Legacy Motor Club cars. And Weather, Focused Health will sponsor Smith for 20 races. WeatherTech will sponsor Zane Smith in the Daytona 500. So, Luke Lambert moving over to Spire. Matt Swiderski coming from Colleague and going to Trackhouse to work with Daniel Suarez. Ben Bayshore moving back up to Cup to work with John Hunter Nemechek after they had such a great relationship in Xfinity. Travis Mack moving from Trackhouse to Colleague to crew chief the 16 car. Everything else basically is the same there. So I guess, we have to look back to previous previous results, I guess, in terms of the Clash since it went to the Coliseum. It's been kind of a demo derby, but it also, there's been Joey Logano went out there, won the race. You had and then Martin Truex won it last year. So that's the 2 years so far. Probably, I guess it would be time. There's more Chevys than anything, so you'd think a Chevy would probably go out there, win, but it's really a lot to do with how you practice and if you're able to get the kind of pace necessary to get the job done there. 3, Martin Truex gets the win. Eric Almirola on the pole from the heat races. Blaney spun and collected Elliott, Gibbs, and Suarez. Blaney would spin 2 more times. Bubba led a lot of laps, spun and got on the wall. Martin Truex would hold off Bald Spot Dillon and Kyle Busch for the win. Truex, Dillon, Kyle Busch, Alex Bowman, and Kyle Larson. So 4 Chevys after Martin Truex last year. Tyler Reddick, Ryan Preece, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, Justin Haley, Kevin Harvick. 27 cars last year. Now there will be 23 this year. So that's, it's hard to kind of make a pick, so to speak. There's only a couple of years of results there, but I don't know. What are you thinking, Josh, in regards to picks to win and a wild card for this weekend's race at the Coliseum?
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting third year in a row that we've had it, and surprised that it's lasted this long in this facility, but it is what it is. But yeah, we've had a couple of different winners, with Logano winning the first year and Truex winning in last year's edition. If you go back to 2022 when he won, Logano won, Kyle Busch was right there. So was Austin Dillon. So, in third place, and then they swapped positions last year. Kyle, third, and Austin Dillon in second. So, one of those guys could be really good to win. So, I'm going to go with Kyle Busch. Yeah, I'm going to say that Kyle Busch wins the Busch Clash, because he's been on the podium both years, but just not on the right spot. So yeah, I'd say he wins the Busch Clash at the Coliseum. And wild card, we'll go with we'll go with this is hard because we don't have the full entry list and we don't know, but yeah, screwed. I'll go with Noah Gragson as the wild card.
Yeah, you're playing with fire there. Going with Gagson. Noah Gragson, wild card. Eric Almirola did qualify on pole last year in the 10 car with there at the Clash, so it's possible. He's out there to prove himself for sure, to say the least. So the for me, you pick Kyle Busch. I'm gonna go and pick Kyle Larson. In terms of short track racing, I mean, you really can't go wrong with Kyle Larson in general. But in the last 10 races, less than a mile, tracks less than a mile in length, he has the best average finish, 7.4, and 7 top 10s, 6 top 5s, 2 wins, and 2 poles. That doesn't count. That's not counting his win at North Wilkesboro either.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so he won North Wilkesboro in the All-Star race also. So, I mean, you got, and he figured out Martinsville finally, which had been a bugaboo for him for God knows how many years. And he was able to qualify on pole at both Martinsville and Richmond, won at Martinsville and Richmond in the spring, and then qualified on pole. Oh, no, that was in 22, sorry. In 23, he won both Richmond and Martinsville, and then finished in the top 10 in 4 out of the 5 short track races there. That were, yeah, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, because it's on dirt, because I said it was, they don't count that. So, Kyle Larson to win for me, and then in terms of a wild card, it would have went SHR, whether it was with Briscoe or Priest, but you went with Gagson. So, that's, I mean, I don't know if it's stretching it. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's the Clash. I'll go with Darrell Wallace Jr.
Stretching it, but we'll let you have that.
I mean, if that's the case, I can change it.
You don't have. You already said it, so.
Yeah, I mean, well, because he did have a chance last year, led a good amount of the race, but that was coming off of the year before. He wasn't really a factor. In his short track results, there have been, so-so over the years, whether he was in the 43 car or now in the 23 car. So it's something to see. We'll see. The Toyotas have had mixed results at the Clash, so we'll see if Darrell Wallace Jr. can get his year started off right. DWJ as wild card. Yeah, so that's that for, I mean, they don't have for whatever reason, they don't have the entry list up when everybody and their mother knows it's the 36 cars that are chartered are going to show up there. I mean, I don't see what really is the holdup on that.
Maybe it's sponsorships.
I mean, they can put blank. They don't have to have sponsorships. They have blank sponsorships on the entry list, and then they end up having a sponsor on the car once you get to the race weekend, because the entry blank usually is sent in like 2-3 weeks before the actual race itself. So
right.
Either way, we'll see what happens with that. Josh, it's your time now as well to talk about all things iRacing and gaming in the sim segment.
Yeah, so I'll start out here with what actually at the Rolex 24, they, a lot of the vendor displays had their gaming setups there, and well, I know one had a couple of had iRacing, some had Forza or Gran Turismo, and decided to stop by at the Toyota display there in the Midway, and went to the iRacing. They had iRacing on their simulator, so I tried that with the GR86 at Legacy Daytona, and with the Fanatec wheel there, and the same pedals that I have, except they're inverted. So, but it's the same model and everything. But I wanted to try out, one, because of the wheel, and two, just to flex on everybody else there. But it didn't turn out that well because the brake pedal was not configured. I don't think it was configured right, and at least not used to how I was trying to brake, or between how I have my brakes set up and how their brake pedals were set up and everything. So when I touched, because normally I have mine pretty sensitive, so I don't really have to put in too much force to, put in pressure to the brake, but there was like really had to push it to the floor to get a good brake response. So, I was just not used to that. So, oh well there, but more or less being able to I guess sample the Fanatec wheel for possible future purchase. Definitely got that objective, so that wheel felt pretty nice and everything, so definitely gonna have to potentially look into that one in the future. So trying out the displays there, yeah, that was cool and everything. So that was the only one really wanted to try it, so that was cool to be able to sample that there. And then of course regular iRacing, with all this stuff now, probably going to get back in the swing of things. Of course, Daytona 500 coming up, in 3 weeks now for iRacing, so definitely going to try to get into that. We'll have to be able to figure out my strategy for that setup. Maybe might have a spotter there, so we'll see, and maybe that'll help me out this time to be successful. Of course, trying to crew chief myself and spotter myself hasn't worked out in the last couple of years, so because I've never won it. But of course Indy 500 is a little bit different than the Daytona 500, but it'd be nice to add 2 titles to there on the sim racing mantle, of course. But we'll see if I'll be able to do it this year. Almost got it last year, but wrecked out within the last 20 laps or so. But that's gonna be interesting. But this week, of course, iRacing NASCAR Class A at Iowa Speedway. It's a little bit short track racing here to start out the year. Let's see, the Okayama Street Circuit or International Circuit with the MX5 Cup this week. Draft Masters at Talladega Super Speedway with let's see which car, the trucks. So that might be a little bit drafting practice there if you can survive and not tank safety or iRating there. The Mustang Skip Barbers with the Sonoma Raceway. That's a good challenge there. Let's see, Oulton Park GTVRS Sprint Series with the Ford GT3, Ferrari GT3. So Sprint Road Racing Series at Oulton Park, 40-minute race. So that should be interesting there. Get a little bit of road racing down, of course, and the Formula Ford at Lime Rock Park this week. Toyota GR86 at Willow Springs International Raceway. I guess the Truck Series, they're actually at the LA Coliseum this week on iRacing. So I wonder if the schedule will change here to update the real life schedule, because I know for Cup they do tend to do that. So I'm very curious on when the schedule changes. Maybe it changes tomorrow. Let's see a schedule this week for Class A fixed series. Looking at that. Let's see, this week at Iowa Speedway, Long Beach on the schedule for Class A fixed. That's interesting for the NASCAR, but that might be something later on. iRacing NASCAR series, let's see, series list. I think, that's interesting there, but NASCAR iRacing Open Series. So I guess they're starting out with Daytona on the iRacing NASCAR Cup iRacing series, so the official series there. So I guess they're not doing the Clash, but it's in the Truck Series schedule, so that's interesting. But with the Coliseum, so I don't know, maybe try that, we'll see. But not really a big fan of short track racing on iRacing for whatever reason, but that should be fun. And then the IR18 in the Indy Fixed Series is on Las Vegas. That's questionable, but I guess it works in iRacing and everything, so that's kind of interesting. And yeah, Formula Ford's at Lime Rock Park. There, like I said, Global MX5 Cup at Okayama Circuit, and then there's also the I guess, weekly road racing challenge in the MX5 this week at Road America. So might try that in a 20-minute timed race there. So should be interesting. But yeah, it'll be interesting here. This year on iRacing, definitely going to try to enter as, many special events as possible, especially Indy 500 back on the schedule here this year. So a 1 year hiatus turned out to be for that. So glad to have that on the schedule again, and hopefully, be able to race on that in iRacing as the schedule permits. Hopefully, I'll have time to be able to do that once that comes around in May. So definitely looking forward to that. Of course, as always, we'll stream when we stream on Twitch at USailor2, and go in there and go see all the things I have. So hopefully we have some good results there, good moments on there this year and everything. And of course, follow me on Twitter. I guess getting a little boost here, signal boost from Bozy. So thank you for that. Thank you to the photographer for, I guess, recognizing that Bozy had a fan or somebody they want to go talk to on the grid and everything, and being able to do that and taking that great picture there, of course, which of course you can follow at JP Huffine and go on there and see all my stuff, and you can see all the tweets that I had there with Bozy and all that stuff. So of course, follow me on there, and then of course follow me on, or we'll follow our YouTube channel at Gripster Podcast on there, which we have all our episodes up there to date. So we'll be up there later this week, and you'll see our review here and be able to talk about it. So of course, one other thing I will mention is the NASCAR Netflix series does come out on July 30th, or not July, January 30th, which is tomorrow. So reason to bring that up, well, at the July Daytona or August Daytona race, they were telling the fans at the Chevy display that Netflix crew would be there while they were talking to Ross Chastain. So possibly you could see me in the background. So gotta tune in to find out for the Netflix series and be able to see maybe Twitter famous, maybe Netflix in the background famous type thing. So we'll see there. So definitely gonna be interesting. So guess look out for that, and we'll see if my face made it in there. We'll have to find out, but it should be an interesting year for racing in general.
Definitely, it's always good to get racing started in earnest. Rolex happening really kind of is that kickoff, and you were able to enjoy that. You're able to get the Bozy bump there, so credit to you, credit to Bozy. Always great to be on and do this together for, now we're at over 200 episodes. That's crazy. But, we'll keep on going with this deal. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. You can find us at GripStripPod on Twitter. You can find me, Philip G. Matthew28 on Insta. Find the Gripster Podcast, if not on our YouTube page, of course. Find it at philipgmatthew.com, where you'll get the sound part. You can also find it on my YouTube page, the sound off of the show as well. Little behind, probably due to the health and work and stuff, so I'll catch up with that, and we'll have the episodes out there. Probably get double the fun this week. And with that, we'll move on, and we'll be back next week for episode 206 of the Gripster Podcast, which will be a Super Bowl preview in earnest, talking about the Niners and Chiefs going to Vegas. They'll have traveled there. They'll have flown in and started the festivities by this point, around this time, Monday evening, a week from now. So we'll see what happens with all that. Preview that. We'll also review the Clash, what happened there, who has the momentum, if you can really take anything from a demo derby, going to the Daytona 500, and whatever else is going on in the world of racing and sports, we'll talk about here on the Gripster Podcast. So for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing. And we'll see you next time.